President-elect Donald Trump delivering again on his promise to bring jobs to America.
Cheryl Casoni from our sister network, Fox Business, here now with the big business deal that he just struck with Japan. Cheryl?
Well, good morning, guys. Donald Trump took a meeting yesterday with Masayoshi Son. He is the CEO of Japanese conglomerate SoftBank to solidify a deal that would bring a $50 billion investment into the United States, with the potential to add up to 50,000 jobs here. Now, this deal, a win for the president-elect, who immediately took to, well, or else Twitter, to say Masa of Japan has agreed to invest $50 billion in the U.S. toward businesses and 50,000 new jobs. Trump also introduced the Japanese billionaire.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Masa of SoftBank from Japan, and he's just agreed to invest $50 billion in the United States and 50,000 jobs. One of the truly great men. Thank you.
He also tweeted, he said this, quote, Masa said he would never do this had we not won the election. Now, the CEO is pointing to the fact that the president-elect wants to scale back regulations, something many business owners say has made the U.S. uncompetitive in the past. SoftBank owns 82% of wireless carrier Sprint, as well as a major stake in Chinese e-commerce site Alibaba, among many other businesses. Sprint had attempted to merge with T-Mobile, but was shot down by regulators. Shares of Sprint hit their best levels in 2.5 years back on Tuesday. Those are your headlines. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Cheryl.
President-elect Trump adding another notch to his past year. Earlier today, Time magazine named him Person of the Year. Mr. Trump called it a great honor. The magazine said it was a pretty straightforward decision for them. Then talked about his search for a Secretary of State, Mr. Trump did. He says Mitt Romney is still under active consideration. And the expanding search has nothing to do with the recent past these two men share together.
It's not about revenge, it's about what's good for the country, and I'm able to put this stuff behind us, and I hit him very hard also, you know, which is very nice that the press doesn't cover that. I'm very happy about that, actually.
Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry is live outside Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania Ave. Ed, good morning to you. It appears they continue to move forward quickly. What is your sense about what you're hearing?
Yeah, well, look, the president-elect himself today said he'll have more announcements today and tomorrow on other non-Secretary of State jobs. Remember, you still have Veterans Affairs, a big job, obviously, to try to fix that, all of the problems there. The Department of Homeland Security, keeping this nation safe. So there's a whole bunch he still has to do, and he says he's moving quickly on that. On top of Secretary of State, he said likely next week. You mentioned Mitt Romney still alive, despite these reports suggesting, well, maybe he's tilting towards General Petraeus or Ambassador John Bolton. So that is still very much up for grabs. And then, by the way, in terms of outreach, Mayor Rahm Emanuel of Chicago, another Democrat, coming in this very hour to meet with Donald Trump in New York at Trump Tower. Remember, Al Gore, the former vice president, was there a couple of days ago, so maybe surprising Democrats that he's doing all this outreach. And I think the other point to make is when you look at these picks coming fast and furious, think about what the New York Times said 1 week in. They said the transition was in disarray and that he was behind schedule, basically, and things were falling apart. He has now really picked that up and is ahead of where a lot of other Democrats and Republicans are.
You're outside the hotel. Give us a sense. Apparently business is humming there. Apparently some questions as well. What do you have on that?
Well, Vice President-elect Mike Pence was here last night giving a speech about the conservative agenda, but also obviously using this backdrop to promote the Trump brand. The government of Bahrain is having a reception here tonight, and there's been a lot of chatter here in Washington that foreign diplomats are snapping up hotel rooms, conference rooms to hold big events here, money that will go into the pockets, obviously, of the Trump organization. Critics are saying this is a conflict of interest, though, as you know, the president-elect has been insisting he's pulling back from the family business. What?
That is one of the frames for this, is that, and we're seeing it with others, that they are saying that, of course, we'll stay at the Trump Hotel. We're going to go see the president, and when we see the president, we want to say, you have a wonderful hotel there. So he's really profiting from this, and it really creates real conflicts of interest and real appearance of conflict of interest.
I think what Ivanka is trying to say, who cares? Who cares? This is big league stuff. This is our country. Our country is going bad. we're going to save our country. I don't care about hotel occupancy. It's peanuts compared to what we're doing.
The president-elect suggesting there his focus is on governing, and let's not forget, he has already signaled that on December 15th he'll have a news conference to suggest he's pulling back officially and turning the business over to his children.
Well, we'll see what happens in the parade outside that hotel.
Right.
Ed, thank you, sir. Ed Henry there in D.C. Martha. The theme now is America First. You watched it play out last night in North Carolina. What was your takeaway?
This has been Donald Trump's theme all year long, and this is why he won the White House. You know, we've seen in the past week that he wants these deals, business deals, jobs to stay at home with the carrier deal and the announcement from SoftBank that they're going to invest double the amount of money that they promised before to invest. And Donald Trump has made it very clear that he's going to be working with Congress and Paul Ryan to foster a business-friendly environment within the country so that all businesses can thrive here at home rather than having to go overseas, whether it's through a reduction in the corporate tax rate, tax reform, or repealing Obamacare, which has had an enormous negative effect on job growth in this country over the past 7 years.
Let me come back to that whole theme in a moment here. But first, James Mattis, do you think he gets the waiver from Congress?
I think he will. Republicans actually last night put the waiver issue into the spending bill that's coming up for a vote at the end of this week. If Democrats want to deny James Mattis his waiver based on that issue, there will be a government shutdown, and it will be their responsibility. So Republicans are pushing the issue. It expedites the issue to make it happen before Donald Trump takes office on January 20th, before he's sworn in. And so I think he'll get the waiver. Outside of Democrats trying to be obstructionist because they're opposed to Trump, there hasn't really been a lot of bipartisan criticism of James Mattis. He has a lot of respect from both Democrats and Republicans for his judgment on the battlefield.
Secretary of State, I thought Mr. Trump made some news this morning in that interview on NBC. He said that he will get an announcement next week. And he was asked to take somebody off the list that's been made public. He did not do that, which tells us Mitt Romney is still in the running, as he said. What is your sense about who he decides?
You know, it's hard to tell. You know, he had the list of 4. He expanded that list to 10. John Bolton is still in the running. Rudy Giuliani is still in the running. Mitt Romney, who has been roundly criticized by Trump advisors publicly, is still in the running, according to Donald Trump, who wouldn't take it off the table. General Petraeus would add to the general list. There's been a little bit of pushback on that. Joe Manchin is an interesting choice, considering he's a Democrat from West Virginia, Democratic senator. Democrats have to figure out what to do with that seat should he be chosen for the job. So this is clearly a position that Donald Trump thinks is very important in a representation of the United States around the world. And based on his America First mantra, he wants to make sure he has the right person to do that job.
What was curious about part of his answer, I thought, Katie, was that he said, you know, Mitt and I have come a long way, basically.
Yeah. Well,
he's looking for that comfort zone.
Well, and the thing is when they got together, there was a lot of criticism of, well, Mitt Romney said horrible things about Donald Trump. But the bottom line is that they were willing to put aside their differences, their egos, and really come together about what they can do for the betterment of the country. Whether they were able to reconcile all of their viewpoints, whether it's on Russia or other issues, so that Romney gets the position, is another story. As we just saw, there's a lot of people in line for the job, and I'm sure Donald Trump will make the best decision that he thinks to represent his Make America Great Again slogan all around the world.
You commute between Washington and New York City. We know what's going on in this town. Yeah. Give us a sense of Washington when you tick off a list of things to do. Tax reform, Obamacare, infrastructure. A lot of promises out there. Well, how is that now being received?
Well, considering Republicans are running the Senate and the House at this point, a lot of those promises can be, fulfilled. It's more difficult when there's a split government to make that happen. But there's always a danger in over-promising, as President Obama did in his first term. So Donald Trump doesn't seem to be worried about that, but it seems like they're ready to get things done. Their Obamacare repeal is on the table as soon as the new Congress and as soon as Donald Trump is sworn in. They're ready to get things rolling in D.C. for the first time in a while.
I believe we're in the process of putting together one of the all-time great cabinets that has ever been assembled in our nation's history. We have some great people going to be named over the next couple of days, too. But to accomplish our goals, we must reject the failed approaches of the past. We must move past the tired conventional thinking of Washington, D.C.
So that was President-elect Donald Trump speaking in Fayetteville, North Carolina earlier tonight as part of his thank you tour. But the liberal mainstream media, they refuse to accept that Donald Trump will be your next president. Now to take a look at one of the so-called news networks, look how they're treating your president-elect.
This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part.
I want to recognize a lot of our viewers at home. This is frightening to them, and I think we should acknowledge that. This may feel to a lot of our viewers at home like a national emergency. Why? Because Steve Bannon has been described as someone who has been described as a white supremacist, as someone who is an anti-Semite.
Inflammatory words about Islam from Donald Trump's choice to be his White House National Security Advisor.
This hour, hateful groups emboldened by Donald Trump's election. Online opinions moving offline.
He did talk unity at his big rally in Cincinnati. The problem was, you know, he kind of dissed Hillary Clinton. The crowd chanted, "Lock her up." The crowd was mostly white.
Still with us, Donald Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, and joining us now, former Obama economic advisor, Austan Goolsbee. You know, Corey, I've gone over these numbers a lot with Austan over the years. 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty since Obama's president, the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, the worst home ownership rate in 51 years. Let's go to Donald Trump from earlier today, and let's look at him announcing the deal with SoftBank. $50 billion investment, 50,000 jobs. Watch this.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Masa of SoftBank from Japan, and he's just agreed to invest $50 billion in the United States and 50,000 jobs. And he's one of the great men of industry, so I just want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, Austan, I'll ask you, President Obama said, well, what's he going to do with Carrier? Wave his magic wand? How's he going to get all these companies to invest? Well, it appears that his magic wand is called a telephone, and he picks up the phone, and he got the deal done that Obama couldn't get done. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, Austan, that we have 1,100 safe Carrier jobs, $50 billion invested?
Well, no, Carrier is a different case. This SoftBank will look at it. This looks pretty good to me. I think
pretty
that's
good?
a good.
$50 billion is pretty good? Yeah, 50. I'm
I
just
think
pretty
that's
good.
A good win. Now, I would highlight that Obama's added more than 15 million jobs since 2010, so he better step up his game as president to try to match that. But I think this was a good win for him.
Yeah, I know. And that's, Corey, that's exactly why Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio were easy wins for Donald Trump, or relatively easy.
That's why the majority of America voted against him. But it's
but
fine.
he didn't campaign in New York, New Jersey, and California because we don't have a system based on the popular vote. Corey.
I didn't say we did. I didn't say we did.
No, look, Sean, Donald Trump has been the president-elect of this country for just over 4 weeks. He saved 1,000 jobs in the state of Indiana, which means 1,000, not only those direct 1,000 jobs, but 1,100, but all the extra jobs that go along with that, which means a great Christmas, which you can say again, Merry Christmas, because Donald Trump is now the president. You can say it again. It's okay to say. It's not a pejorative word anymore. The other thing is, $50 billion and 50,000 jobs in the first 4 weeks. We continue down this path. We're going to have to have an increase in immigration to fill up all these jobs, and we're going to have too many in our own country.
Actually, that would be fewer jobs than Barack Obama has been adding for the last 6 years.
Austan, with all due respect, you are the only American that gives him good grades on the economy. But he's gone in, what, less than 60 days? He's done. And the Obama era, thankfully, is over. And we'll survive, and we'll clean up his mess. Do you have a problem with a 10% repatriation rate for trillions of dollars for multinational corporations? Do you have a problem with a 15% corporate tax rate?
Yeah,
because corporations, we know, don't pay taxes. They pass the cost on to consumers, don't they?
Well, you're kind of mixing a few things there. On the corporate rate, as you know, what they're actually talking about is cutting corporate taxes by a lot and paying for it by putting a national sales tax equivalent onto consumers. I have some problems with that. The 10% repatriation
I didn't see the national
rate,
sales tax aspect of it. Did you, Corey?
They're not calling it a national sales tax,
Donald
but
Trump
that's
has never
the
said anything about a national
adjustment. They're calling it.
Look,
I never heard
Donald
it.
Trump has never said anything about a national sales tax, and what he said was
No, he's
our
talking about
country
a
deserves to
border
be
adjustment.
competitive.
That's good.
What he said is our country deserves to be competitive with all the other industrialized countries in the world, and we pay a higher marginal tax rate if you're a business than everybody else does. So let's put our economy on par or better than the others. So let's lower the corporate tax rate to 15% so we can be competitive again. What's wrong with America First?
Boy, there's nothing wrong with lowering the corporate tax rate if you pay for it. And we're going to see if he's willing to pay for it.
We're going to get lectured on the Economic Council advisor that gave us more debt than 43 presidents before him combined.
Cut the deficit in half, Sean.
Before him
Cut
combined.
the deficit in half.
By the way, Corey, isn't this a much better experience than CNN? You got to admit, it's much better.
Well, the good news, look, it's not 8-on-1, which I appreciate. I don't mind the 1-on-1. I'll do that all the time.
No, it's actually 2-on-1. It's me and you against him.
That's right. I'm not used to these odds.
We have a good time over here, Corey. You're going to like it.
All right. I want my steak dinner when you get to New York, Mr. Goolsbee. You owe me a steak dinner with wine.
I owe you.
Yes, you do. Thank you. All right.
All I got left on there is for a baked potato, though. You're not getting steak.
Corey, welcome back. It's good to see you. And joining us now in an exclusive interview, Donald Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski. Corey, good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sean.
You know, maybe I'm old-fashioned, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, but, when you ask people to do something for you and they do it, saying thank you is not a bad thing to do, and it seems to be going over very well. The crowds are huge, and he's planning on doing a number of other of these rallies.
Look, I think this is so smart, not just going out and seeing the people and reminding them that the power is not in Washington but is out in the States, but saying thank you for the support that they gave Donald Trump in this election. What he said was, we're going to unite everybody. But this speech tonight is really powerful, talking about the military, reminding them that they'll have the tools necessary to continue to be the best fighting force this country and this world has ever seen. And with General Mattis there tonight, I think this is a home run.
Yeah, agree. And by the way, great choice. We're going to talk to Colonel North later in the program about Mad Dog Mattis. I know the military is very happy with that. The thing that I like about the speech is he's reinforcing the promises that he made on the campaign trail. In other words, originalist justices, 15% corporate rate, repatriation, building the wall, repealing, replacing Obamacare, education back to the states, energy independence. To me, if he does those things, he will be a successful president because people, I think, want him to follow through. Didn't we see that earlier today with the announcement, this deal that was made, $50 billion investment, 50,000 jobs with this the SoftBank deal that he made and announced at Trump Tower today?
Well, we saw that, plus we saw just last week 1,100 jobs saved in Indiana. Those are hardworking Americans who are going to be able to keep their jobs here and have a great Christmas, where it's okay to say Merry Christmas again. Look, Donald Trump in the first 4 weeks of his presidency has done more to help this country than I think Barack Obama has done the last 4 years. Now, I know that's a strong statement, but what we see is a commitment to our military, again, a commitment to our businesses to reduce the amount of government regulations so that they can continue to grow and grow our economy. Not at 1%, not at 2%, but at 4%, 5%. Lower the corporate tax rate so that our country can be competitive in a global marketplace. That's what we have. Look, his presidency is summed up in 2 words, America first. I love it.
Yeah, look, if these 2 deals that he made before becoming president begin to define a pattern, then Americans will get back to work, out of poverty, off of food stamps. They'll be able to purchase that home, lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. All right, you were up in Harvard, and you were part of a debate team. I know that Dave Bossie was there, Kellyanne was there, I think Paul Manafort was there. You were there going up against Jennifer Palmieri and people like Robbie Mook, and it got really pretty nasty on the side of the left. Let me play a part of it with Kellyanne, and I want to get your perspective on this.
I would rather lose than win the way you guys did.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes. Yes.
That's very clear today. No, you wouldn't, respectfully.
Absolutely.
Do you think I ran a campaign where white supremacists had a platform? You going to look me in the face and tell me that?
It did. Kellyanne
really?
did.
Oh, and that's how you lost?
It did.
Do you think you could have just had a decent message for the white working class voters? Do you think this woman who has nothing in common with
anybody... I'm not saying that's why you won, but that's
you
had a campaign that was run.
Over 200. How about it's Hillary Clinton? She doesn't connect with people. How about they have nothing in common with her?
My question, you were there. Was it really that bad? Are they really that far, I guess, out of touch with reality that they still don't understand what happened?
Well, I think, look, I was there, and the Clinton campaign has not come to the realization that they had a fatally flawed candidate that never connected with the American people. Donald Trump won over 200 counties, which Barack Obama won 4 years ago. That is not for any other reason other than the fact that people want a better country. They connect with Donald Trump. He understands the problems of the working class. He's fixing those problems already, as we see by bringing jobs, keeping jobs here in America. The Clinton campaign ran a fundamentally flawed campaign. They had a fundamentally flawed candidate, and they refused to take any blame for the way that the campaign turned out. They blame everybody except themselves for it.
Yeah. One of the things Donald Trump talked about today was $4 billion being spent on Air Force One, a contract with Boeing. I want to be very clear here. I think the President of the United States, regardless of who it happens to be, needs the best, the safest aircraft. In the day and age of radical Islam and ISIS and Al-Qaeda and fear of surface-to-air missiles, it's a scary time. So Air Force One will need defenses that no other plane needs. It's the right thing to do. But $4 billion, here's what Donald Trump said earlier.
Well, the plane is totally out of control. It's going to be over $4 billion. It's for Air Force One program. And I think it's ridiculous. I think Boeing is doing a little bit of a number. We want Boeing to make a lot of money, but not that much money. Okay, thank you.
USA Today said $3.2 billion, but somewhere in that range, which is astronomical. I can't fathom any plane or two planes costing that amount of money. Your thoughts?
Well, here's what it is. Look, Donald Trump is a businessman who understands how to control costs to be successful. And taking over the role as the CEO of the United States, it's a $4 trillion budget, and he's looking at $4 billion and saying, is this the best we can do? Let's shave the cost. Let's use our taxpayer dollars wisely. I love this. If he's looking at a $4 billion investment as the grand total of what the federal government spends, that means all of those projects are going to be available for review, and we're going to save money. We're going to return that money to the taxpayers. We're going to stop the burden on the federal bureaucracy onto these small businesses, and we'll grow our economy so that we can compete in the global marketplace. Why are we spending $4 billion if the plane really should be a $2 billion plane? I agree with Donald Trump.
Yeah, look, you got to watch out for the taxpayers' money, especially when we have $20 trillion in debt and nearly $200 trillion or $125 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Let me ask you this question. There's an article today, it quoted Congressman Flores of Texas, and the article talked at length about how some Republicans, and we know a lot of them were not on board with Donald Trump. I would even say Speaker Ryan, he even admits he didn't see what was happening in the country, not even in his own home state. But the gist of the article was, oh, let's just pass those things that we agree with Donald Trump about, like cutting taxes, reforming the tax code, the easy things, and then the things we disagree on we'll deal with later. Why do I feel that they're never going to want to do the things later, and they're only going to want to pass the things they want to pass? It's sort of like you always get the tax increase, and you never get the spending cuts. You always get the amnesty, you never get the wall. Is this an indication of President-elect Trump that he better pay very close attention to what these Republicans are doing? Because if he wants immigration reform and tough immigration laws and tough vetting of refugees, he better get it up front, because otherwise he gives away his leverage?
Well, I think so. Look, I think the first 100 days of this administration are going to be critical to make sure that his agenda is being accomplished and being put forth. And he is going to Washington, D.C. with a mandate, and I think the Republicans have to recognize that. He won more electoral votes than any president
don't give up
since
your
Ronald
leverage.
Reagan's re-election.
You don't trust the Republicans any more than I do.
Look, I don't, and what I know is that Donald Trump is a businessman, and he knows how to accomplish deals. He knows how to make sure that people both walk away from the table happy, but he's also made a promise to the American people, and that promise is to build a wall on the southern border and to protect U.S. citizens. And the number one job of a president of the United States is to make sure that your citizens, both here and abroad, are safe. That is what he's going to do, and no congressman, no member of the United States Senate is going to stop him from doing that.
By the way, isn't it better to be on a network where it's not 10-on-1?
Well, look, I'll tell you, I've got a lot of friends at the other side, but it's nice to be here when we both agree that Donald Trump is the right candidate for President of the United States.
All right, Corey Lewandowski, stay right there. We'll be right back with him right after the break.
There's lots of substantive criticism in the media of Donald Trump, and that is just fine, whether you don't like his foreign policy, his appointments, the call to Taiwan, the Carrier air conditioner deal. This is how the media should cover a president-elect. But there's a new market niche that is emerging here, and I'm struggling to come up with a name for it. It is kind of like fine wine, W-H-I-N-E, because it gives a platform to people who just don't like Trump and says he's screwing up their lives. Really, seriously. You have Billboard interviewing Madonna who offered, I guess I have to describe it as sexual favors to any man who would vote for Hillary Clinton during the campaign. She now says that Trump's election feels like someone died. And it feels like death, and it's not a bad dream, and she wakes up and blah, blah, blah. We also have a guy who got space on the New York Times op-ed page, a Republican elector in Texas who says, all right, I may be bound, or at least morally obligated, to vote for the GOP candidate who won my state, but I don't like Donald Trump. I don't think he's fit for office. I don't like his foreign policy. Why is he picking fights with Alec Baldwin? So I'm not going to vote for him. So that's just a stunt. Doesn't affect the outcome of the election. I don't quite see why this guy gets valuable real estate. But the one that absolutely takes the cake, and you know, it reminds me of all the pieces that we have all read during the campaign about couples that were going through therapy because one liked Trump and one liked Clinton and they weren't getting along, or the post-election pieces about Thanksgiving, how to get through a Thanksgiving dinner, even if you have a couple of crazy relatives who voted for Donald Trump. But here's a woman named Stephanie Land, and she gets space in the Washington Post to tell her story. And the story is that she's a single mom, and she was dating, trying to find a partner, and she went through as many as 6 dates in 1 week. And you kind of feel like it's going to end up with, well, her boyfriend didn't like Trump and they broke up. But no, it's even weirder than that. Stephanie Land, who lives in Montana, says there were a couple of guys she was considering as permanent boyfriends. But then, once it was clear that Donald Trump would be president instead of Hillary Clinton, I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to gather my children in bed with me and cling to them like we would if there were thunder and lightning. That world felt precarious to me. So when she considered the guys she had been dating, she said, well, they're too unfamiliar. I have to rely on my friends. And she told one of these fine gentlemen, I can't. I just can't. And Stephanie Land says, I've lost the desire to attempt the courtship phase. So she is so depressed over the prospect of a Trump president that she can't go out with anybody. Now, if she were telling this story to her friends, fine. But I don't really see how Trump messed up her life. She messed up her life or doesn't want to date anymore because she's so depressed and blah, blah, blah. Why are editors giving a platform to these people? I suppose it gets some clicks and sells some papers and it's entertaining to read. But it just makes me feel like, you know, maybe many people they know are so upset about Trump that they don't know what to say. They can't speak. They've lost their appetite. They feel ill. They can't date. They can't go on. And it's just getting kind of frivolous. And it's getting kind of old.